The statistics of queer people are quite unknown in our country. In Japan particularly, people are not very outspoken about their sexuality or sex in general. It's considered a very foreign thing, and not only that, it is considered a sex thing, which is kind of taboo. So the numbers would be very iffy if there were any, and I don't think you could really get any accuracy there. I have a lot of queer friends, but none of them are outwardly queer, and I think that it's extremely difficult to be queer in Japan because finding a community of people who understand is very, very hard. A community of people who struggle with being out as gay is even rarer. So I struggled with that a lot, and I went through some hard times in this quarantine. That's really how coronavirus and COVID-19 affected me as a queer person, is that I was stuck in a very dark place, and my family were not the best people to talk to about my queer problems. It really has kind of a disadvantage in just general aspect of things because they're not talked about, and also when there is discussion about them, it's usually about how we're perverts or how we kind of like don't exist. Another place that has difficulty accepting LGBTQ individuals is Korea. There was a headline recently on a Korean news article written by a conservative Christian publication that read, "Coronavirus carrier attends gay club in Taewon." The article at hand was accusing sexual minorities of shamelessness, and often in Korea, LGBTQ people are considered mentally ill. People are still trying to find the person who the article was written about, and even the 5,000 people that the article claimed were attending that club that night. It could have been completely fabricated or just blown out of proportion, and it was just to spark more hatred towards the LGBTQ community. It's not just Japan and Korea, a lot of East Asia has been taking the spread of coronavirus to minorities, and especially the LGBTQ community.
In Hungary, trans and intersex individuals are now unable to legally change their gender, as a new bill was passed in May by Parliament with a 134 to 56 majority vote. The bill, which was submitted on March 31st, the Transgender Day of Visibility, introduced the term gender at birth, defined as the biological sex determined by primary sexual characteristics and chromosomes, to replace the term gender in the official registry. The vote follows the coronavirus lockdown of 2020, where Viktor Orbán was enabled to rule by decree following a Emergency Powers Act. Human Rights Watch calls this another violation of Hungary's international rights obligations, as it comes at a time when the government has used the COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext to grab unlimited power and is using Parliament to rubber stamp problematic non-public health related bills such as this one. The change puts trans and intersex individuals at risk of harassment, discrimination, and even violence in daily situations when they need to use identity documents. Danny, a trans man living in Budapest, described to Human Rights Watch the daily humiliation he faces and how this law only worsens what these marginalized groups already face. Hungary's president, János Áder, who has a duty to ensure the people's basic rights are not violated by unconstitutional laws, signed the bill into law on May 28th.
Hey guys, I'm Runa and I'm going to be speaking about Poland and some of the things that have happened the past few months during the coronavirus pandemic in relation to LGBTQ plus issues. So, Poland is often said to be one of the most homophobic countries in the EU. This is largely because decades of communist rule left behind a conservative and homogenic society. Secondly, the Roman Catholic Church, which took credit for supporting and nurturing the nation's democratic opposition before the collapse of the Soviet Union, has essentially created an environment in which it is close to impossible to pursue an LGBTQ plus friendly agenda. So Andrzej Duda was recently re-elected in Poland during the presidential election, and he placed LGBTQ plus issues at the center of his campaign and pledged to specifically defend children from LGBTQ plus ideology. On June the 10th, Duda signed the so-called Family Charter, which is a series of pledges designed to protect the traditional family. Conservatives define the traditional family as a married heterosexual couple with children. They included a promise to defend the family against LGBTQ plus ideology by, among others, prohibiting the propagation of LGBTQ plus ideology in education in schools. The Archbishop of Krakow also called LGBTQ plus ideology a rainbow plague. Many local authorities under the control of the PIS, for example, have declared themselves free from LGBTQ plus ideology, and a conservative newspaper distributed LGBTQ plus free zone stickers, and the PIS governor of the Lublin province awarded medals to citizens who opposed LGBTQ plus ideology entirely. So essentially, it is quite a scary and unprecedented time within Poland right now because of the re-election of Duda. The government is essentially ramping up the hate speech, and it's giving fascist and right-wing groups more authority to speak out and commit hate crimes against LGBTQ plus individuals. And this has been particularly difficult for individuals during lockdown because there haven't necessarily been ways of gathering or meeting up or planning action to speak out or campaign against these implementations. So it has been a really difficult few months. So yeah, stay safe.
Hello, I'm Matias. I'm from Paraguay, and I'm here basically to talk about the situation regarding COVID-19 in Latin America. So basically, since all the confinement measures started, all over the continent, a lot of people have been forced to stay at home. So also this quarantine meant for a lot of young queer people a return to their houses, where they don't always find support or a queer-friendly environment. So this is a huge threat to their mental well-being, since sadly in a lot of Latin American countries, LGBT phobia starts at home. For the trans community, this outbreak meant a huge injustice to do mainly with the loss of their jobs. Because for instance, in my country, Paraguay, 52% of the trans people have not been in school because of harassment, bullying, and violence that they suffer. And in order to gain money and survive, they need to go and work in formal jobs, which mainly involve sex work. So after this outbreak, they have also been forced to quit their jobs and lost their source of income and return to their houses, where they are not always well received either. Regarding medical tests to detect COVID-19 in Paraguay, the trans community has not had the same opportunity as the rest of the Paraguayan population, since they don't have an ID according to their gender identity. This is because in Paraguay we don't have a law for gender identity, and all those medical centers that refuse to do COVID-19 tests on trans people remain unpunished because Paraguay is the last country in the southern cone of the Americas without a law against all kind of discrimination. In Latin America, in an attempt to diminish the amount of inequality and violence against the LGBT community, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights have required all the states to guarantee the equality and the right of non-discrimination for the LGBT community. This is because there were situations such as the one in Peru, where the Peruvian government decreed that during quarantine, the circulation of people must be by gender. So this means that it was up to the police to decide what the gender identity of the people was. So after this decree, there were a lot of cases of harassment and police abuse all over Peru. In Brazil, there is also a problem with COVID because the Brazilian President Bolsonaro has said that COVID-19 was just a flu, and therefore there was a saturation of the entire Brazilian health system. And there are a lot of hospitals that were only on surgeries for trans people that suffered for budget cut because of this saturation of the Brazilian health system. In Mexico City, the largest city in Latin America, there are only four shelters for LGBT people. So after the quarantine started, these places were also forced to close, leaving a lot of queer people homeless or without a place to go through quarantine. In Argentina, there is a shanty town called Villa 31 in Buenos Aires, the Argentina capital, where there are a lot of trans people with coronavirus that were literally left to die, forgotten by the government and the rest of the population.
Hi guys, I'm going to be sharing some of the measures that my country has put in place. First of all, we've had strict lockdown, which has been eased, and people can go to work or for shopping and etc. But we have to wear face masks, and violation of the lockdown measures is an offense. You can be fined or sentenced to jail. Returnees are also subjected to testing and mandatory quarantine. This has been really hard for the queer community because, first of all, our economic situation is not conducive, and many people have had to move in with extended family in order to isolate. So many have had to move in with people that are not accepting of who they are, and this has been really hard on their mental health, and some may be going through violence. We've also recorded an increase in the number of gender-based violence cases, and people cannot go to the safe spaces, and they just have to create this facade and go through whatever experiences they go through with their families. But some people have had this time to bond with their families and work on improving their relationships. So our economic situation has made implementing prevention measures hard because most people do not have enough to eat, and this is affecting their physical and mental health. People are in isolation, and things such as internet data or electricity is out of reach for many, and communication has become really, really, really hard. For me, I'll say that the coronavirus and lockdown has affected me in a slightly positive way. I've stayed indoors for 3 months, and I've managed to make time for myself, to reflect, and to work on my academics, as well as spending time with my family. I miss going out with my friends, and I cannot wait to finally do that in the new normal that we are going towards. Um, Lastly, I would like to send my love and support to everyone struggling out there. We will definitely pull through this and get together again. But
It's okay. It's gonna be okay.
above all, remember to be kind to yourself.